you look at any contemporary account of war involving the SAS or whatever, kill count. You look at any of the big recent novels by soldiers, The Longest Kill, Sniper One, kill count, kill count. I think it's completely hypocritical to suggest it's something that's never discussed. It's widely discussed.
Now, military types weren't impressed by Prince Harry saying he'd killed 25 people in Afghanistan. Harry said he thought about them as pieces on the chessboard. The case against Harry is that soldiers shouldn't brag about kills and that he's increased the chance that he or others will be attacked as a result. Let's talk to Anthony Lloyd, who's the Times' war correspondent. Morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Stig.
I really wanted to speak to you about this because I read this and I saw all the criticism, and I read, as I know you have, a bit of a longer passage from the book where he talks about this. And to me, of all the things where Harry blathers on, I think is subject to criticism, this felt very heartfelt. It felt very reasonable to me. You've lived your life working with people who are engaged in war. What's your reaction to it?
Stig, yeah, I'm pleased you asked about this. I mean, I've been a war correspondent now for 30 years, and before that I was a soldier in the British Army for 5. So like you, I think there are many areas where he is liable to justify criticism. But in this one, I didn't think so. He's wrote a relatively sensitive account, just around 1,000 words, of his tours in Afghanistan. And in it, he talks about the war, so many mistakes being made, the complications of being a co-pilot and gunner in an Apache helicopter. And he also talks about, I could always precisely say how many enemy combatants I'd killed, and he explains why, because after each mission you come back, the videotape from the chain gun beneath the Apache 30mm chain gun is put on, and the commander assesses whether the kills are legitimate or not, whether they're on target, whether they were missed, who was killed. And Harry says, I felt it vital never to shy away from that number. And then he says, so my number, 25, it wasn't a number that gave me any satisfaction. He goes on to explain more about it. He actually says he's more bothered by the times he couldn't fire on missions in support of, for example, Gurkhas who were under attack by the Taliban because there was a breakdown in communications. Talks about the complexity of the battlefield. There are a couple of fairly crass evaluations at the end. I mean, he seems to think, which many ex-soldiers do, that the people who were fighting all the enemies of humanity who are all somehow responsible for 9/11, which clearly wasn't true in Helmand. But his actual discussion of his own kill count is not a boast, it's not a brag. Within context, it's a totally acceptable piece of writing.
And also, I think that unless you've actually been asked to kill someone, then how can you really... And I know his fellow soldiers maybe are able to make a judgment on this, but we are asking people to go out and kill people. That's what being a soldier is. And you've got to try and rationalise that, presumably, however you can.
I think fellow soldiers, particularly former commanders, should be very careful about this. And I think some of the criticism against him over this is leveled just because he's antagonised the establishment and they want to criticise him for whatever reason. Also, this is nothing new. Harry discussed the amount of people he killed in Afghanistan back in 2013. It was all over the papers and there wasn't the same criticism then. But certainly as far as commanders go, they train young men up to go off and kill other young men abroad. In Afghanistan, that amounted to being involved in a war in which thousands of civilians were killed or wounded. The war was ultimately lost. And then for one young man to come back at the end of it all, or older man now, and say, during my time there, I don't want to shy away from this number. I killed 25 people, and then be roundly criticized for that, I think is hypocrisy. I think as well, a lot of commanders and a lot of former soldiers have a big problem between matching up what really happened in war, what they really did there, and how they like what they did there and what really happened to be seen afterwards. So I think it jars with our sense of sort of, I don't know, honour in soldiering or whatever, for Harry to talk like this. I think it should jar. I think the truth is better outed than suppressed.
What about, I mean, have you spoken to people, though, who say it's a no-no? Because I've seen people say it's an absolute no-no to ever brag. It's a no-no to ever keep score. In public, you don't talk about it. There's a sort of omerta here. You should just be silent about what goes on. Is that true?
It's rubbish. It's rubbish. May I say, I'm actually speaking downstairs, photograph my grandfather I was very proud of. He was a bomber boy. He was a navigator to 57 missions over Germany. Got a picture downstairs of his Lancaster with actually his bombing missions marked up in swastikas on the side. Yeah. You look at any contemporary account of war involving the SAS or whatever, kill count. You look at any of the big recent novels by soldiers, The Longest Kill, Sniper 1, kill count, kill count. I think it's completely hypocritical to suggest it's something that's never discussed. It's widely discussed. Let me tell you as well, Stig, when I was a soldier, we were training up to go to Northern Ireland. This was in the late 80s when troubles were very much still in flow. Excuse me, 1 second, I've got frog in my throat. That's better.
Well done.
When I was training, a few months before, there had been a big ambush in Northern Ireland by the SAS. They had ambushed 8 members of the East Tyrone Brigade, the IRA, and killed them all. When we were training in Britain, specialist training, go out there, the photographs of these dead IRA members were plastered all over the walls of our classrooms by the trainers who used to play us regularly Queen's Another One Bites the Dust in order to focus up on going out there. Now, this is the same system which now turns on Harry and says, excuse me, in some ways he shouldn't have talked about this. It's ridiculous.
And just finally, Anthony, it's fascinating stuff, and I'm glad to hear you talking about this because I think there's just been a pile-on. It really has been a sort of, I want to have a go at Harry, and lots of ex-soldiers have decided to pile on about it. Is there a security risk increased by this? So ultimately, everyone knows he's fought the Taliban. Everyone knows he will have killed people in the Taliban because of his job. Does this increase the security risk to him or other people, him talking about it, do you feel?
It certainly doesn't lessen the security risk, but this was all known back in 2013. It was all over the papers back then. The Taliban are very unlikely to come out of Afghanistan to try and do him harm. There could be other Islamic radicals who might wish to do that, but they would have always wished to do that. He was a serving member of the British Army who did tours in Afghanistan. That's been known for a long time, and he's talked about his kills for a long time.
So nothing more to see there. Anthony, I'm really pleased to speak to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Steve.
That's Anthony Lloyd there, the Times' war correspondent, giving his view on precisely Harry's military experience and why he was entitled to talk about it in the way that he did.
Welcome to Meghan and Harry Tales, where we uncover the untold stories, explore the deeper truths, and defend the narratives that deserve clarity. Today we delve into the intense scrutiny surrounding Prince Harry's military service and his candid reflections in his memoir. Prince Harry's comments about his time in Afghanistan, particularly his acknowledgement of the number of combatants he killed, have sparked heated debates. Critics have accused him of boasting and increasing security risks for himself and others. But is this criticism justified? Or is it yet another example of the relentless pile-on against the Duke of Sussex? To set the record straight, Harry's account in his memoir is far from boastful. In fact, it is a deeply reflective and sensitive exploration of his military experience. He detailed the procedures that made it possible for him to know the exact number, 25. As a co-pilot gunner in an Apache helicopter, every mission was recorded, reviewed, and assessed. His acknowledgement of this number was not to glorify it, but to own the weight of his actions. In his own words, Harry shared that the number brought him no satisfaction. Instead, what haunted him more were the missions he couldn't act on, times when communication failures left fellow soldiers, like the Gurkhas, in precarious situations. These reflections show a man grappling with the complexities of war, not seeking to sensationalize his role. Veteran war correspondent Anthony Lloyd has supported Harry's perspective, emphasizing that such discussions are not uncommon among soldiers. He pointed out that the military system itself has long encouraged open acknowledgement of kills. Lloyd also highlighted the hypocrisy of Harry's critics, many of whom have remained silent when others shared similar stories. Interestingly, Harry's acknowledgement of his combat kills isn't even new. Back in 2013, the same revelations were widely reported, yet they didn't attract the same backlash. So why now? It seems clear that much of the criticism stems from Harry's broader challenge to traditional establishments. By stepping away from royal life and openly discussing his experiences, Harry has become a target for those eager to discredit him. But here's the undeniable truth. Harry served his country with dedication, stepping into one of the most dangerous roles in the military. He risked his life not for glory, but for duty. And his openness about the emotional and moral toll of war is something to be respected, not vilified. As for claims that his comments increase security risks, experts like Lloyd have dismissed them. Harry's involvement in combat was already public knowledge for over a decade. Any threat he faces today is not because of his words, but because of who he is, a former soldier, a high-profile figure, and someone unafraid to speak his truth. This controversy isn't just about Harry. It's a reminder of the double standards and the ongoing struggle for fairness in the public eye. Harry's reflections, far from being a breach of military decorum, are a brave attempt to bring transparency to an often misunderstood world. Thank you for tuning in to Meghan and Harry Tales, where we bring you the insights that others overlook. Let us know your thoughts. Are the criticisms against Prince Harry fair, or do they reflect a deeper agenda? Stay with us for more explorations of the stories that matter.